startups, entrepreneurship, starting your own new business. Join me every week as we dive into stories, topics, and advices from the top founders, innovators, the crazy ones, the misfits, the troublemakers. Every Saturday at 4 p.m. I'll see you there. Impact-based startups की जो field है is expanding so rapidly. This is a space which is open. We can get foreign investment in this space as well.
अच्छे काम करने या doing good is part of our value system. We underestimate the value of doing good. We don't understand the actual value of the impact we're creating. And just like I think, if you smile to someone, that's also sadaqah. I think now we need to be looking at things from a different perspective. So we need to be mindful. We need to be opportunistic for the right reasons. I think we need to look at, is it ethical? Is it adding value to the entire ecosystem?
If you look at the recent scenarios, yes, globally, everything is in a crisis. You were a banker, so you know how money works. It's higher likely that you would get investment in Pakistan on a business that's actually solving the problem for masses.
Capitalism hasn't worked. But this new version of capitalism, where people are driven by purpose. This whole notion of stakeholder capitalism is about engaging you as the consumer and the stakeholder in this, whether it's a supplier or whether it's a provider. I see more of that happening in Pakistan indirectly, because perhaps people don't know that that's happening. Like I said earlier, all of the problems of the world are obviously in Pakistan as well, and so are the solutions. And I think that's where startups and also governments and existing businesses, multinationals, individuals, we can all become part of that contributory society. So that's why I think stakeholder capitalism really has value.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Saad Allahwala and we're back with another podcast with a very special guest, a very good friend, and a person who has helped me in many things that he might not know yet still, but he has. Today we have Zubair bhai with us, Zubair Anwer Bawany, who is a coffee lover, who is a sustainability mentor, sustainability ke piche pagal, and he wants everyone to be just think more and be better. So thank you so much, Zubair bhai, for coming.
Jazakallah, thank you for such a warm introduction as well.
No, it's a very valid introduction because you are doing so much. And you have so much hope for people. You give people hope, and sometimes even you need hope. But it's so much needed in the society at this time, especially at this time. I mean, when I got to know about you, इतनी बुरी situation नहीं थी पाकिस्तान में. मगर आजकल तो बहुत interesting time में हम रह रहे हैं.
But you know, I mean, you say, I mean, you've hit a point there. You say कि हालात सही नहीं है.
Yeah.
But I think globally हालात सब जगह ऐसे है. I mean, you can't do apples to apples.
No, so I didn't mean about Pakistan.
Yeah.
I meant globally.
Yeah, globally,
globally
of course,
लोगों को hope की ज़रूरत है.
And I think अगर hope नहीं तो फिर क्या है? And that's not philosophical. That's actually my belief as well. That I mean, there's got to be a tomorrow, right? And tomorrow's got to be better today. And if it's not, then we're just struggling. When wrecked, we're jayenge and depression, all that kind of stuff. So I remain hopeful and optimistic, sometimes foolishly as well. But then you meet great people like yourself and, you know, some of the interactions we've had over the past few weeks and stuff. So it just gives me a little bit more momentum. Ke, haan, ye sahi rasta hai, isi ko pakad ke rakho, isi pe kaam karo. And then obviously the products and services that you do, if you can incorporate doing good, then that makes the journey much easier as well.
आज हम थोड़ी सी SDGs के ऊपर Sustainable Development Goals पर SDGs जब भी जल्दी बोला तो अजीब सा कुछ हो जाता है.
Say it slowly, there's no rush.
SDGs के बारे में बात करेंगे, हम कॉफी के बारे में बात करेंगे, and हम this new transformation into the sustainable world and the new trends, the new companies that are opening, but also how we can adapt. And you're also operating now in a company which is helping people adapt to this changing world and these changing policies globally. So to get ahead, you have to actually focus on the SDGs. अगर आप businessman भी हैं और अपने काम करते हैं और SDGs के ऊपर focus नहीं कर रहे तो tough time मिलेगा. तो अभी से शुरू कर लें, अभी से अपने record सही कर लें तो ज़्यादा अच्छी बात है.
Yeah, I think if excuse me, hit a valid point that I think the narrative right now is कि अगर आपने sustainability को अब नहीं पकड़ा, and we're at the halfway point, so there's this thing called the 2030 agenda कि 2030 तक हमने ये सारे goals को meet करना है. I look at it as the world's biggest to-do list.
Yes.
सारे जो globally जो मसले हैं वो identify किए गए हैं, and उसमें obviously 19 piece है. And the impact that we have if we get those right. So, you know, we have things like addressing poverty and education and climate action, etc. So halfway point per here be 2023 pair. We've got 7 years left to achieve that. If we don't, then it's a big problem, and we're going to be in a bad way, I guess, is the easiest way of putting it. So we look towards businesses and governments and civil society and individuals like you and I as well to do our part. And that's what I love about sustainability, that हर कोई involve हो सकता है, वो अपना थोड़ा सा पार्ट कर सकता है, चाहे वो अपने घर के लेवल पे हो, अपने कम्युनिटी या सोसाइटी के लेवल या अपने बिजनेस पे. And that's what I've tried to do with my businesses as well. And just on your point कि अगर कुछ नहीं करेंगे, there's this viewpoint amongst certain organizations and businesses, the UN included, that if businesses don't adapt and adopt sustainable business practices in this next coming year, so by 2025, it might be game over for some businesses. And that's worrying, because you might have a 100-year-old business that is no longer relevant because consumers पूछ रहे कि आप क्या कर रहे हैं. And you've seen it, you know, globally. You've traveled, mashallah, like, you know, chocolate के बार के ऊपर लिखा होता है fair trade and, you know, all this kind of stuff. So वो अपनी जगह. So if companies aren't jumping on the bandwagon of sustainability, whatever reason they want to do, and if they aren't providing products and services that appeal to this new wave of mindful consumers or purpose-driven consumers, then unki relevance nahi hai. And that's why you've seen such a big wave of startups as well, I think, as well. So that's a trend. The startups are actually plugging the gap. Okay, hum ye product de sakte, hum ye need fulfill karte hain. And inherently they're creating impact. So I think for big business, multinationals, it's difficult because they've got policies and stuff that have been embedded for many years. And koi bhi cheez ko change karna waqt lagta hai and samajh bhi nahi aati hai. For a new company, I'm not saying it's easier, but perhaps it is easier because you have less to shift, right?
Yes.
Fluidity or agility aapke paas hai. And I've seen that in so many of, you know, my friends' businesses as well. And even, you know, we talked about coffee, and even with Alchemy, it was easier to build the business around doing good rather than start the business and then think, acha abhi humne kya cheez pe kaam karna hai. So I think, yeah, sustainability is an opportunity. If you haven't been doing anything on it, start now. And if you haven't done anything by 2025, then yeah, I think it's going to be tough.
ऐसे.
But catch up हो जाएगा.
You just opened up a very so I talked about startups. There's a lot of people doing startups, and the awareness is spreading due to the sudden investments in Pakistan and all. But हम investors के जब सोचते हैं तो हम ये नहीं याद, हमें पता ही नहीं कि जी impact investors भी कुछ होते हैं.
Yeah.
Similarly, impact based startups की जो field है all over, I would say more in Europe, is expanding so rapidly. Might not be at the same pace in America because वहाँ पे अभी भी थोड़ा बहुत ज़रूरत है सिखाने की. But this is a space which is open, and because we are an English-speaking region, we can get foreign investment in this space as well. So that's something that people should definitely look at.
Yeah, I think we underestimate the value of doing good.
We do.
So pehle hum, again,
but I don't think we underestimate it. हमारे अंदर कूट के भरा हुआ है.
Inherent है.
हमें पता है सफाई नसीमान है, हमें पता है कि नमाज पढ़नी है, हमें पता है नमाज के फायदे क्या हैं. हम सब करते हैं लेकिन हम नहीं करते.
So I think this is it. You raised a valid point, right, for conversation, that inherently अच्छे काम करने या doing good is part of our value system, right? Whether culturally, religiously, or whatever. And probably, I think there's some data that Pakistanis probably contribute a significant amount globally to good causes, right? In Pakistan and outside of Pakistan. But when I talk about this, hum samajhte nahi hai, it's like we don't understand the actual value of the impact we're creating. And just like, again, not quoting any religious scripture or anything, but If you smile to someone, that's also sadaqah. I mean, that's like low-hanging fruit, right? It's
Did
not
you see my
rocket
video
science.
on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my mentioning, right? So it's not rocket science, but we forget that. So we go around the day, grumpy or whatever, however we've had our day. So just on your point about impact investing, I think if we take a moment to reflect, and Pakistan के अंदर मुझे ये चीज़ मेरी observation है कि हम रुकते नहीं हैं, तेजी से चलते हैं. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but we haven't got a moment to stop and reflect. If we reflect, then हम सोचते हैं हम क्या कर रहे हैं, हमारे काम का क्या benefit या नुकसान हो रहा है, and then we can assess. And we're very smart at doing that. I think we're probably one of the smarter nations around the world, and you can quote me on that publicly. So I think if we stop and reflect for a moment and we think and we pause and then we review and then we think, okay, so am I adding value? And it doesn't have to be in the traditional way. Am I adding value to my society? And just, you mentioned something, seedhe hath ko nahi pata hona hai, ulta hath kya kar raha and all that kind of stuff. I think wo apni jagah ek mindset hai, philosophy hai, but we have to go above and beyond if we're to address this world to-do list. And all of the problems that are on that list are also in Pakistan as well. And I think so are all the solutions. So if startups are looking at how can they attract impact investing or impact investors, I think one of the key things they can do is, what's the value addition I bring to my stakeholders? That's my wider society. And I'll give you an example of Cadbury's, not that I'm advocating chocolate or anything, but जब John Cadbury ने अपना business शुरू किया था Bourneville, Birmingham के अंदर, back in the 1800s it was, Quaker by religious denomination, and he said मुझे स्कूल का भी देखना है, healthcare का भी होना चाहिए, so छोटा medical center. I need to take care of my staff. If I take care of them, then my business is taken care of.
Because
right?
then they'll take care of me.
Yeah, so he
ways.
didn't say you travel miles. He created a whole town. He said, "Aapne walk karke aana hai daftar pe, ya factory pe." And his whole philosophy was around doing good, but there was method to his madness as well. It was like self-interest be there, but he was inherently good, right? We've moved away from that concept through capitalism and capitalism 5.0. I think now we need to be looking at things from a different perspective. So we need to be mindful. We need to be purpose-driven. We need to be opportunistic for the right reasons. I think we need to look at, is it ethical? Is it sustainable? Is it adding value to the entire ecosystem? Now, not all businesses and services will be able to tick all of those boxes, but if you tick a couple, I think you're now more attractive. And we talk about impact investing, then you're telling your story from a different perspective. So like I mentioned about my coffee before, I'm also on fundraising. And when I talk to investors, and I've got a meeting after this podcast as well, he's going to ask me, कि तुम इस मुल्क को क्या benefit दे रहे हो? So not just from a product and service and experience perspective, what value am I adding? So I'm uplifting society not through my product, but through the employment I'm going to create and through the number of outlets I want. And I want people to have a better quality of life. So I'm going to pay above minimum wage. I want to address all the imperfections that we have in businesses and human rights. So you make yourself a little bit more attractive. And if you adopt the Sustainable Development Framework, then that makes it easy for you because now you've got a mechanism to work from. And you also are highlighting impact as well. So I think for any startup that's on this journey, it's like, do a baseline of where you are. We can help with that. Look at the impact that you're having on your immediate circle, ecosystem, and then your wider ecosystem and wider. And then start looking at where you'd like to really make an impact. So, I mean, I have a vision myself, I don't want to see anyone out of work. I want everyone to have dignity and self-respect. And I think you can get that through being employed or being, an entrepreneur. But apne kisi ke samne haath nahi phailana. Risk to upar dene wala hai, but if you're in work, you have dignity. And that then solves a lot of society's problems. So that's one of my missions and goals. And I think a lot of impact investors are listening now. Because what with the businessmen and women here, they need something that's on trend and on point as well, right?
I see. So again, you opened up a lot of options and opportunities. And if you look at the recent scenarios, yes, globally, everything is in a crisis and everywhere there's problems. Investors are also looking for a safe place or a safer place because they want their money to be back into the flow. You were a banker before?
Yeah, a long time ago.
So you know how money works.
Yeah.
Just yesterday I made a video about how banks work. क्योंकि लोगों को ही नहीं पता कि बैंक क्या है. आपको तो सबसे ज़्यादा इसका पता होगा. लोगों को पता ही नहीं बैंक करती क्या है, बनी क्यों होती. तो but people want to get into the market, and also because Pakistan and its recent floods and SDGs being even more important now.
Yeah.
Pakistan is a more, I would say, it's higher likely that you would get investment in Pakistan on a business that's actually solving the problem for masses rather than somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's high time. क्योंकि हमने एक्चुअली अभी प्रॉब्लम्स फेस करी हैं और दैट कंपनी ऑल्सो, आई मीन हर एक कैपिटलिस्ट होता है तो उसको भी अच्छी PR चाहिए. So putting in a few $1 million would never hurt any company globally.
So there's this thing that was launched at Davos in 2020 called stakeholder capitalism. And that's basically saying that capitalism, so I'm going on record here saying capitalism hasn't worked. But this new version of capitalism where people are driven by purpose, so profit with purpose, where impact investing is done, where doing good is okay, halal 5.0, where it's ethical, sustainable, environmental, all these things, mindful, and products and services being created that not only bridge a gap in society, but are thought about as well. So consumer products as well, and then consumerism as well. So it's not just companies' responsibility, it's ours as well. We would just buy, and take, and demands.
Right.
So this whole notion of stakeholder capitalism is about engaging you as the consumer and the stakeholder in this, whether as a supplier or whether as a provider or whether as a consumer. And I think that's the dynamic shift that's happened. And I see more of that happening in Pakistan indirectly, because maybe perhaps people don't know that that's happening. But there seems to be engagement. And even जब हम भी पहले बात कर रहे थे, you were saying कि हम ये इस तरह हो सकता है, ये इस तरह हो रहा है, ये कर रहा है. For me, it's just, I'm just seeing fragments of, visuals of how all of that jigsaw puzzle is coming together. And it's an ecosystem, right? And I think, like I said earlier, all of the problems of the world are obviously in Pakistan as well. And so are the solutions. And I think that's where startups and also governments and existing businesses, multinationals, individuals, we can all become part of that contributory society. So that's why I think stakeholder capitalism really has value if we're going to continue down capitalism.
No, but you see that happening in Pakistan, and you, because of coming to your event and seeing the stakeholders who are actually contributing to this. Kal raat hi halake, I watched the video of Artistic which I just shared, and they're recycling. So everyone, we were just talking about mistrust in society and so much bad happening or so much not happening because of mistrust. So many corporations that should be happening and could be happening and are wanting to be happening still are not happening. तो ये जो एक फॉर्मूला टूटा हुआ हमारी सोसाइटी का कि काम करना भी लोग चाहते हैं, everyone knows everything, अवेयरनेस का मतलब ख़त्म, काम करने की सलाहियत ख़त्म, वो भी है, दोनों चीज़ें हैं. जो एक चीज़ रह गई है, ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट बहुत है सोसाइटी.
I think trust deficit is there or exists for a number of reasons. One is, again, I'm not conspiracist or conspiracy theorist, but it's been presented as Pakistan is that because it's easier to present Pakistan that way and other developing countries. You look at Africa as well. But why? I mean, they're amazing people. We've got really great friends there.
मेरे ख्याल से कराची है एक वैसे on a national level देखा जाए तो शायद, I mean, I shouldn't say this on record.
No, don't say it then. Okay. You know the gist, yeah.
But on a private level अगर देखा जाए तो we don't, whatever the government does, it doesn't really affect the corporates or the companies.
Yeah.
I mean, it does, but on a very छोटे level पे. So why do you think it's there in the industry even?
So I think it's a number of different things. So I used to be a lobbyist for the banking sector, as you mentioned, to government when I was in the UK. And then I was in the government the other way around. So I got to see both sides. And I think it's not so much mistrust or lack of trust, it's a lack of understanding of what the other party is doing to advance society. So usually क्या होता है, यहाँ पे भी होता है, governments, corporates को देखते हैं कि आप तो profit driven हो, आप capitalist, आप पैसे बनाए, you should be doing this, and if it's like this, you should be doing this. And कुछ हद तक UN भी ये कहता है कि private sector, you should be doing more to advance climate action or whatever it may be, gender equality. And the private sector looks at government and says, ये हमारी जिम्मेदारी नहीं, हम तो stakeholders को, shareholders को जवाब देते हैं, we're driven by profit and that's our business, right? If we weren't, then we wouldn't be contributing to economy, creating employment or whatever. So आपकी जिम्मेदारी बनती है, Mr. Government or Miss Government, to do ABCD and have the policies and the infrastructure. When we were talking the other day, I mentioned that my own personal view is I'm not advocating government or private sector or whatever. I'm just looking at this from an independent perspective. That in a company, you have a CEO and a board of directors, and the CEO is responsible to its employees and its stakeholders, products and services. So big organizations have multiple products. Usually companies have one or two products or services. If we look at government in the same lens, with the same lens as a company, you have a CEO who now has a board of directors, which are your ministers. They may or may not come with the relevant expertise or experience, but they come with a drive and a determination to move that agenda forward. And that works in government. That same philosophy doesn't work in practice in private sector. You have to come with some expertise or experience. And then if you again look at government as a company, then they have all of these products and services. So they have to look after infrastructure, health and well-being, education, employment, safety, security. The list is like this. And then their employees, if you want to look at it in the same context, are the population who've got competing demands and needs. So the mission then is actually really a mission impossible. And I think for any government, it's like a mammoth task. How do you keep all of your people happy all at the same time and deliver on what you're supposed to do? So that has to come in my mind through a collaborative effort. So it has to be a public-private partnership, including the public as well, not just private sector. And I think we all have a role to play. And that's why I like the Sustainable Development Goals, because it's a framework, right? It helps us all unite with a common agenda or a common goal or a direction of travel. It provides somewhat of a roadmap in a loose form, if not a specific form for companies. And it also allows us to speak a universal language, right? Hum sab achhe kaam, like you said, karna chahte hai, but sometimes we can't. But if we all strive or align with one of the goals or the impact behind the goals, then I think it makes it easier. So I think the lack of mistrust, the lack of trust rather, comes from not understanding each other better, pointing the finger and saying, ya tum ye nahi karo, ya you should be doing this. And I think we need to talk more, we need to engage more and go with an open mind and with not having an agenda. Mujhse se ye nikalna ya mujhe. You go with specifics, so you should have outcome-focused meetings.
Right.
But what is it that we want to work on? So, us being here today is, हमने awareness भी raise करना है, कुछ अच्छी बातें भी करना है. अच्छा भी लगता है to get things off your chest as well, not just the bad, the good as well. And then there's a specific outcome behind that as well. Maybe we'll mobilize people into a movement. But I think if we're to address the trust deficit issue, I think that's going to come with action, not just talk. But through talk, we need to be, in some kind of ecosystem. And I think, we always come back to SDGs and
yeah. So to sum this SDG conversation up, what's your company providing? What are the services that your company is doing? Because you are helping different people, and if someone actually wants consultation of sort of a company that they're actually already working on, like the guy back at the event, he was mentioning that he's working with big data. क्या कर रहा था? तो आपने उसको suggest किया कि ये करो. So if someone actually wants guidance, plus also companies who are already established and want to get certified with these जो एक यूरोप में एक आप खुद ही बताएं ना, तो that would be the best way to put it out.
No, I think that's a nice segue. So our company's called Quantum 5. We're an accelerator for the UN Development Goals. We're partnered with the UN Global Compact here in Pakistan. Obviously, we work very closely. So hum team bhi share karte hain. So we've been working on jointly enabling companies. That's how, the UN Global Compact was set up by Kofi Annan. It should be an enabler of business. It should enable business to adopt better practices. And it started off with human rights, and then obviously it's moved to sustainability. And the UNGC is one of the custodians of the SDGs. So what we've been doing through Quantum 5 and our colleagues is to understand the private sector's challenges. And again, pehle baat ki thi, you should, hum ye nahi kar rahe, hum kaise milke kar sakte, how can we help you, how can we enable you? And I don't even like the word help, because that sounds like main sab cheez janta aur maine aapko bata diya and aapne kar liya. It's two-way engagement. So what we're doing is using our tech platform. So we have this tech dashboard called SDG Me. So the ME stands for Mapping Engine, and you can go and have a look, sdgme.org. We primarily start off with an assessment. So जब लोग कहते हैं कि यार हम SDGs पे बहुत काम कर रहे हैं, sustainability पे काम कर रहे हैं, but you talked about impact investing before as well, or corporates are saying हम ये कर रहे हैं, reports बना रहे हैं. It's like, well, that's what you're saying. So again, back to your point of lack of trust. Saad, you're saying your company's doing this, but who said so? Has it been verified? Has it been validated? So I'm not saying that. Those are questions that get asked, right? So if you go through the SDG Me assessment, the baseline one, it's 45 minutes. It's been designed with simple English. It's yes or no. It's based on practice, not policy. And it enables smaller organizations and startups to compete with the big organizations like the corporates and the multinationals. So it's about leveling up. So that's the mission, leveling up and leveling the playing field. So now as a small organization, a choti company, or maybe a company that's a family-owned business, doesn't necessarily have the resources or the policies in place that say कि हम ये काम करें. Like for example, I know of a company that रोज शाम को दफ्तर बंद होने के बाद वो जाके खाना खिलाते हैं, like in their community, 100-150 people, बैठक करके. Now that's not recorded or documented anywhere, but they're addressing no poverty in their community. They're not doing it CSR. They're just doing it seedhe haath, right, left hand, all that kind of stuff. And they're doing it because that's the way they do business. Every single day, 365 days a year. Now, if a corporate was doing that, they would say it's CSR, or say we're delivering on SDG 1 because we're doing this, or SDG 10, we're delivering on this. And this is the impact we're having. Humne roz 75 people ko khana khilaya de, to say ye ho gaya, ye ho gaya, ye ho gaya. And the net impact. This organization is not writing about that. So how can they showcase what they're doing or attract impact investors or just motivate or inspire the people? So by taking the assessment that we have, the simple version, it means that that's validated and documented because they're doing it in practice, not in policy. But what it also does, it gives them a 5-page report with all of the visuals, the data capture, that verifies and validates कि actually हो रहा है. And then when I've had some comments, as you came to the event on Thursday, I was talking to Rahat, and I won't say which multinational he's from. And I said to him, this small company is kicking your ass on climate. And he goes, what? Hum to ye kar rahe, and we're recycling bottles and all that kind of stuff. And I said, yeah, but let me just show you the score. And I scored 89% on climate action. He said, wo kya kar rahe? I said, well, all of their leftover stuff is repurposed. They are zero waste. Absolutely everything. I was like, oh my gosh, we could learn so much from them. So mission accomplished, right? So the baseline assessment, think of it like a ECG report. Aapko pata chal raha hai aapke baseline kya hai. Then we have a level 2, which, that's where the engagement comes in. I don't like the word consultancy because it depicts a wrong kind of perception in my mind, with lack of trust.
I don't think in Pakistan though. We still appreciate it.
So I like to think as collaborators.
Yeah, okay.
And what
collaborator mein lagta hai na partnership. Hum log partnerships bhagte hain.
हाँ ये भी है. So I think it's
consultancy lena prefer karte hain compared to.
I don't know. So we'll have to come up with a new word, right? So whether it's advisory or whatever, I don't know.
But it's all like potato, same thing.
So what the level 2 then does is help you. So you've established your baseline level 1, simple form mein. Then you sit down as a team with us or without us and you say, right, here's a roadmap that I want to set. But it also helps with the business case as well, because you can go to your CEO or your boss and say, boss, dekho, I'm 64%. That's great. You know, we're killing it, as it were. Where would you like to be? And the boss says, well, obviously it won't be 100%. No one can get to 100% on the SDGs, right? If we did, we solve the world's problems. But hum koshish to kar sakte hain.
Not even the United Nations.
I don't think we can, because the nature of our environment is ever changing, right? And our challenges are changing. The inherent issues are still the same, but the level and modality of those are changing. So we're there to work with businesses, private sector, to enable them to accelerate their action. So if they've started out, then the baseline is there. It's a tech platform that helps them establish where they are, then set a roadmap. If they're already on the journey, we can align them with the SDGs much quicker and faster. So jo humne 10 saal jo mujhe lage seekhne ke liye meri team ko, we can move a company from A to B literally in months. And then there's a trailblazer stuff. So because we have access to the UN and Davos and all that kind of stuff, we want to say, aake showcase kare. So with the Global Compact, we run this campaign called The Road to 2030 via Pakistan. And I want to showcase Pakistani companies. I want to tell the world, Pakistan is amazing.
It is.
Not just because we're amazing people here, but hum kaam bhi to kar rahe hain. Impact bhi aapke samne hai. It's just not aligned to the SDGs. So if I can tell those stories and I can get the people behind that impact to come and share their journey, and we do that through the podcasts as well and the webinars, but also at event, then what it does, it creates a different perspective of Pakistan. Positive, I think. It attracts investment, whether financial or other. It makes the life of the UN family here in Pakistan easier as well, because then they can mobilize faster and quicker. It certainly gives corporates very low-hanging fruit activities and initiatives to work on. And then the last thing, it moves us up the human index. So jo human index pe jo hamara score hai, hum usse aage badhenge. So I think, just back to SDG Me and Quantum, it's a tech platform. It's designed to be there to enable companies to start their SDGs sustainability journey or accelerate it. The dashboard that we have has got resources, so you can learn about how to do the business case for your boss, where the impact areas are focused, what's priority area for Pakistan, who's doing what. There's also surveys in there as well. There's a CEO guide, how do you help your CEO and all that kind of stuff. And then we've put together in there SDG Me for Schools, which are going to launch in about 4 or 5 weeks. It's going to be launched in London first at BETS, which is an annual education gathering conference. And then we're also launching SDG Me startups. So we did a trial in 2019, and I think now's the time where, like you talked about, impact investing. So if we can enable startups to early on take the assessment, they know exactly where they are and the impact they're having against all of the SDG indicators, and then they can determine the pace they want to take and where they need to adapt or adopt. And many will probably be doing great stuff. So we've teamed up with NIC Karachi as well. And that will be rolled out over the next couple of months as well. So yeah, if there's startups there that want to take advantage, then please do. Yeah.
Awesome. So that's all about SDGs. Now we move on to coffee. So coffee with Zubair. Coffee with Karan nahi hai, coffee with Zubair.
And हम इस वक्त चाय पी रहे हैं.
It's coffee. किसी को पता नहीं थोड़ी चल.
मुझे याद है मैं अब just
when movie में wine पी रहा होता है हालांकि होता तो grape juice हम coffee पी रहे हैं.
I'm just going off on a tangent. So your dad, bless him, I think it's 2014 ki baat hai, over at your old place. And instead of Greenwald, he said, Zubair, aao mujhse ye baat karo, ye cafe CSR kya hota? I had this concept of doing, pre-podcast, right? Ki hum bulayenge logo ko gupshup karenge over coffee about the great work that they're doing. And that should just be it. Oh my gosh, we tried that. It was horrible. I was so bad at that. And वो just समझ भी नहीं है, पता भी नहीं क्या बात करने का, क्या सवाल पूछना है, करना है, nervous and stuff. And full circle, 9 years on. And तुम यहाँ बैठे हो, हम ये गपशप कर रहे हैं.
तो ये अपना जल्दी से podcast अपना शुरू करने वाले हैं. He has a lot of names. I mean, 2 दिन में बहुत सारे नाम सुन चुका हूँ. तो ये भी है, मैं भी करूँ, ये भी करूँ. But we can either do we can do voting. So it can be either like a comedian in cars getting coffee. So that's one idea.
Yeah, okay.
कि आप जाएं किसी को गाड़ी में उसके साथ कॉफी पिए, कभी मैकडॉनल्ड्स की कॉफी हो गई, कभी आपकी कॉफी हो गई, कभी आपका वो बैग हो गया, कभी किसी आप ब्रू कर रहे हैं. It should be all ना. Shouldn't be just one. And you criticize them.
So I wouldn't criticize because, so here's my take, right? So I think some of the high street brands, just some UK men loves the high street brands, जो बड़े brands है या दूसरे भी brands है. I don't begrudge them. कि वो नहीं कि वो बुरे हैं. I don't think they're great. And the reason why I don't think they're great is because I don't think they give you best value. So best value in terms of experience, in terms of quality, in terms of taste, in terms of money. So I have that issue. And I want to change that. I want to disrupt that. But also, I'm actually respectful as well because they've opened up the doors for coffee, certainly in developing countries. But also, they've actually created employment and uplift opportunities for the people behind the scenes, right? So not just the plantation owners, and because there's pressure on, we go again back to sustainability, because there's pressure there.
तो वो कॉफी वालों की बहुत बात होती है, चाय वालों की बात नहीं होती. पता है जितनी डॉक्यूमेंट्री मैंने कॉफी वालों की दी है, कॉफी प्लांटर्स के साथ ये होता है. भाई चाय वाले भी तो हैं, पत्ते भी तो हैं. हाँ, वो अलग. श्रीलंका वालों के तो कोई फोकस नहीं करता बेचारे.
A good friend of mine is tea plantation owner in Sri Lanka. तो उसके बारे में next podcast में
डन. उनको बुलाएं मेरे podcast में, उनसे बात करनी है आप. But focusing on coffee, yes, there's a whole backstory to coffee, and coffee culture has really grown compared to other addictions, I would say. Because I mean, it's an addiction. Coffee is an addiction. Chai is an addiction. And there's alcoholic drinks which have again उसको इतना artisan वाली चीजें इसके साथ करनी शुरू कर दी कि now it's more of a trend. It becomes trendy.
Alcopops,
तो अब कोई cocktail है, कोई कुछ है कुछ. तो same thing with coffee. तो आपको ये जुनून कहाँ से शुरू हुआ कि कॉफी के पीछे आप इतने?
Oh my gosh, so I think probably when I was about 15, 16. So I wasn't allowed to drink coffee because when I was growing up in the UK, coffee was a grown-up drink. और posh dinner events पे होते थे, you know.
So it wasn't an everyday drink. चाय होती थी रोज.
Tea was everyday drink, you know. टी को जी में वो सारा केटल में बना के वो सारा करके होता था. But जब आपका dinner होता था तो आप coffee निकालते. And तब भी वो instant coffee होती थी और you know, filter coffee was still fairly new.
This is like English dinners or आपका
wherever, you know, just generally more obviously English households, but हम भी जब entertain करते हैं, my parents would, it was like that, and you know, it was like उसकी aroma, उसके सारे जो context, you know, it was just made the perspective or the perception of coffee was that ये grown-ups का है and it's for special occasions. And tea is run of the mill every day, you know, and price point be reflective था. So I think I just fell in love with the whole idea of coffee, and then the limited information that we had back in the day was just like, we'll just take hota hai na. But also I think my parents probably encouraged it ke rather than hamara beta koi galat raaste pe chad jaye, let's indulge him and stuff. So on my 15th birthday, I got this Krups coffee machine, cappuccino maker. It was absolutely amazing.
Espresso machine thi.
Yeah, so this all-in-one huge thing, and you know, I had that for a year. Then the next year, I दूसरा machine मिला, and they indulged my kind of obsession, I think. And then as I got older, 18, then I was able to drink coffee. And ऐसा कोई नहीं था कि parents ने मना किया था, but it was just kind of like, you know, there's certain things that you don't do until a certain age, right? And then I started working in, you know, obviously I have legal background, so I was training at a barrister's chamber. We went for our first lunch where, you know, then my first week, and pizza वगैरह हमने खा के said, would you like a coffee? I was like, oh, पहली बार पी रहा हूँ बाहर, you know, ये सारी चीजें. It was a big thing for me. I still remember Bill Wishart is his name. I hope he's around. Great barrister, great person. And he said, let's order an espresso. And oh my gosh, it was strong, but I just fell in love with it. Not just the smell, but the taste. Everything about it, I could just see myself just like, I could be hooked on this for the rest of my life. And then I just wanted to find out more.
So like Americano or just a
chota wala, haan. And ideal mein, haan. And it was just, I don't know, I just fell in love. And I fell in love with the history and the romance. And I thought there's got to be more to this. And then, you know, then you go to different shops. Ab aapka world khul gaya na. And then, you know, by that time I just started university as well. And every time I'd come back home to visit my parents.
And where were you studying?
Where was I studying? So just outside of London, Northampton. Law par raha tha.
Aap lawyer hain?
Yeah. Aapko nahi pata hai. Oh, past life.
Lawyer hai, barrister hai?
Lawyer, so corporate. Past life. And then, you know, I'd come home and my dad would say, chalo theek hai, tumhe station se pick, I'd get the coach, pick you up, and then we'll go to this department store, a favorite department store, very expensive. He said, chalo coffee dekhte karte hain. Wo phir aapko samples dete hain, beans aap dekhte hain. I was like, acha ye Colombia se aaya hai, ye Rwanda se aaya hai, ye wo hai na.
The green beans?
No, roasted beans, yeah. And they would sell you the roasted beans in a pack. You would take it home and grind it. This is pre all of the fancy machines we have now. And tab bahut kam cafes bhi hote the. So I just fell in love again even more, and I was like, I tell you, can't say I'm asking all the questions and all that kind of stuff. And then again, phir koi bhi birthday ya anniversary ya koi cheez ho to mujhe coffee related gift mile. Yeah, my parents were okay. Zubair ko is cheez ka shauk hai, and buy beans for me, and you know all that kind of stuff. So I started doing my research and stuff. I remember in my second year of university, वहाँ पे student loans होते थे, तो मुझे लगा कि मैं अगर student loan ले लेता हूँ, I'll be able to set up a cafe. I'll be smart with my grant. With my money. And I went to my business studies tutor, and I said to him, you know, I found 4 friends. I want to set up a coffee shop. I found the space in Northampton Town Centre. I think it'll be great. It used to be a bank. I'm going to take a student loan from the bank and I'm going to put my money in their money. He said, tum bewakoof ho. Nahi karna. I was like, okay. So you listen to your elders or experts. That was a bit of a, you know, deflated moment. I thought, I know it's going to work. 20 years later, I was there a couple of years ago for an alumni event, and wohi jagah bilkul cafe bani hui hai. So this is in Northampton, it's the UK. So there were those kind of moments where, you know, we were talking about earlier, कि आप अपने आप को second guess करते हैं, अपने trajectory जाना है, अपने study करना है, नौकरी करना है, ये job करना है, यहाँ तक पहुँचना है, करना है. And I always had this thing in my mind that I want to open a cafe, but not just a cafe that sells coffee. Like, you know, I want it to be an experience. I want it to be about science, and I want people to feel what I feel when I look at coffee and smell coffee. And, you know, if there was a toothpaste of coffee, I'd have toothpaste every day of coffee, you know.
Hota to hai na?
Ab hota hai, haan, maine Amazon pe dekha hai. And, you know, everything just around it is just amazing. And I want people to experience that. And, you know, when you smell coffee, aap baki cheez bhul jate hain. So fast forward a number of years, obviously I'm working in the private sector, working in the UN, and coffee just seemed to be this new method of doing negotiations. So Red Indians mein peace pipe hota tha. You know, when you'd want to do a negotiation, you'd take a puff of the pipe, you pass it around, and that was your way of saying, hum aligned, hum collaborate kar rahe.
Peace pipe?
Peace pipe, yeah. Google search it. It was like the way old way of doing this. Yeah, 1800. Literally, by kada pura pipe, you know, and you'd smoke it. And what you're saying is that...
Smoke it?
Yeah, so it was like proper tobacco. Oh. So it was their way of saying ke aap hamari badadi, you know, brotherhood ke andar aage, and, you know, we trust you and we'll work together. So Red Indians, you know, back in America.
I can't find it coffee toothpaste on Daraz. Charcoal mil gaya.
So anyway, so I found when I was doing the negotiations, you know, between private sector and UN and stuff, जब हम coffee के लिए break करते थे, whatever the quality of coffee or whatever the brand, just the aroma would just diffuse the situation. And it almost became like, is this the new peace pipe? फिर लोग आपस में हम यूं खड़े हुए हम बात कर रहे हैं, आप close up भी हो जाते हैं आपके counterpart से, and they'd be like, अपने घर वाले चीजें बता रहे हैं, and what they just trust this being, and I'm like, okay, so I'm seeing coffee from an even different perspective. I was just like, yeah, I've got to do something. And then, you know, again, you get distracted with your life and family and all the other things. But I remember, so 2002, I got engaged to my amazing woman in my life. And if it wasn't for her and her support, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. And, you know, behind every successful man is not just one amazing woman, many amazing women. So, you know, I put Uzma up there in that superhero. And I remember my brother-in-law picked him up from my nanny's house just around the corner. We were going to pick Uzma up, go for family dinner. And he said, hum ruke kahin, hamare paas abhi bhi aadha ghanta hai. Basically, Uzma wasn't ready. So I said, okay, we we stopped just on Hyderabad, and he said, chai peeni? He said, yaar, Muzammil, main chai nahi peeta, coffee mil jayegi? He said, coffee Pakistan mein mushkil hai. And there was this place, Costa Coffee in D-Mart. We stopped. Costa, yeah. Abhi to hai, this was back then.
Costa kab khuli hai?
Last week khuli hai.
हाँ, अभी recent
Tab thi, no, 2002.
पहले थी वो?
Yeah. So where Nahid store is now, just there.
वहाँ Costa Coffee होती थी?
It was in D-Mart, so it was a concession, you know, chota sa.
हाँ, D-Mart के अंदर.
We went in. It was probably the worst coffee I had in my life, and it wasn't a good experience.
Costa British नहीं है?
Huh? So it was terrible experience, right? And I was like, that's even incentivized me more. So we got back in the car, and my brother-in-law Muzammil said, yeah, I'm sorry the coffee was bad. I said, it's not your fault. And then I just shared with him, right? And I've only known him a couple of weeks. And I said, you know what? I have this vision that I want to set up a chain of coffee shops, but not commercial in that sense, you know, like doing good, but I didn't know what the word was then. And it should be all about the experience and the value creation and, you know, quality. And it should be everyone looked after in the ecosystem and the supply chain and everything. He was like, nahi chalegi, yahan pe nahi chalegi. And I was like so deflated. I thought, local person mujhe ye keh raha. And then, you know, you just think, oh, karna to karna. And it just became an obsession after that. And I would speak to Uzma about it, and she was like, kisne kaha ke nahi kar sakte? Kuch bhi ho sakta hai. Pakistan hai, yahan pe kuch bhi ho sakta hai. So fast forward a few more years, and then, like I said, you know, the UN stuff and everything. And it's interesting, I was speaking to Muzammil about this very thing about 2 years ago. He'd just come back from Dubai. He'd bought some coffee from Tim Hortons, and he said, Zubair, vanilla coffee lekar tumne try karni hai. I said, you know my take on other people's coffee, and I'm a bit of a snob like that. He said, haan, but coffee zabardast hai. And I just thought to myself, here's a guy who 15, 16 years previously said, coffee nahi chalegi, and coffee hum nahi peete, and now people are buying coffee. And, you know, we set up Alchemy in 2019, and, you know, it's been going, mashallah, since then. And it's that thing that we talked about, opportunity, right? So I think the thing that's been working for Alchemy is my obsession. You know, I've put everything into it. I live, breathe. Yeah, someone said to me on a Instagram post about a year ago, I was doing an event at Coil, and they put on Instagram, कि Zubair को अगर हाथ काटो तो खून नहीं निकलेगा, coffee निकलेगी, espresso निकलेगी. So I take that as a compliment. But yeah, I'm absolutely obsessed. And every night before I go to bed, you know, people अपने Facebook देखते हैं, मैं coffee के बारे में पढ़ता हूँ. So I'm self-educating. I learned how to roast from scratch. So I interned at some coffee roasteries in the UK. And I'm still prepared to share that knowledge. So half a dozen cafes that have opened up here at some point, it's not about me, you know, saying I'm good or anything, but I've reached out and say, can you help us? So again, I see it as an ecosystem, so not competitors. But I just want people to experience what I experience when I have some coffee in my hand, and the whole history behind it. And one thing that someone had said to me, and I take it on face value, that when in Islam alcohol was banned, there was a coffee bush nearby them, and someone said, "Yaar, isko extract karke nikle na kya nikle?" And then coffee came out, and they're like, "Oh, this is as karwa, as bitter, as sour as the alcohol, but it'll keep us awake, so we can study and read the Quran." I don't know if that's true or not, but so that's inspired me to think. So if coffee started much earlier than we give it credit for, in the 60s and 70s, then there's a whole lot of history. And then you go to places like Makkah and Medina, and then kava is this thing that everyone sort of congregates around.
So the kava is different. They've added some. It's green coffee. They don't roast it?
So they still roast it, but it's how it's extracted.
But it's like so different. It's not coffee.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of coffee, right? That it's a commodity, but it's a God-given, plant. And
you have it with dates and so amazing.
What's that cheese like I say? And then you add coffee.
So I was just in Riyadh for a week, and I had so much of that. Then I got tired of it.
Yeah, because it's an acquired taste, right? And I think that's it. Coffee is a journey as well. You start at one point, you build, and then you get to the point where you find what is comfortable for you. So I can't have espresso all of the time because it's just too concentrated.
So are you an Americano person or a
yeah, mostly
coffee?
Americano. I mean, that's what it's called modern day, but I mean, it's black coffee, right? And I sip it, and I prefer to have it in a glass, filter coffee, in a glass when it's room temperature. Aram se sip. That's me time.
Room temperature, not hot.
Yeah.
I like it a little hot. Not too hot, क्योंकि फिर ज़बान जलती है.
But you should also try, I know we were talking before, but you should try espresso with a twist of lemon.
Okay. वो आपके साथ ही मैं पीऊंगा. Espresso मैं खरीदने वाला. I don't trust espressos that I buy.
No. You need to have better quality coffee, and that's what I mean as well, right? बहुत सारे उसके inherent quality.
So second question.
Yeah.
लेकिन मुझे ये छोटा जवाब चाहिए. What's your ideal coffee shop? And can you give me an example of something in Pakistan?
Oh yeah.
कि जी ये इस दुकान का ये, इस दुकान का ये, इस दुकान का ये.
No. I'll tell you because I've been trying to do this for the past year and a half, right?
क्योंकि doing that, we get a good picture of what you want.
So imagine a glass box, right? I'm not going to give you the size, and the experience is a bit like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
So the glass box is like the Apple Store, okay?
Next. Yeah, perfect. Yep. And you've got 3 sections to it. So glass partitions with a door that comes in.
Okay.
So in the middle area, you are there with a counter, coffee bars, hai pura baristas baithe hue, all the latest machines and coffee's being served to you, and you can select your beans and everything. Yeah. And you've got your tables. Behind it is a glass partition, and it's called Alchemy Lab. In that is the roasting machine and all of the equipment. But as a customer, you're invited to come in as well, right? Because I want you to be part of that experience. And then there's a third area, which is, I guess, the engagement and interactive part as well, where you can experiment with your own coffee as well after it's been ground. So you might say, beach mein tum baithe hue family ke saath hum coffee pee rahe and we have our different types of coffee and the food and everything. But here you might say, well, I want to try this espresso with lemon. I don't know what it's going to be like. So you get to be creative, and that's great for me because I'm engaging with you and interacting with you, and you're giving me ideas and suggestions. But you get to live the experience of coffee. So there's one, you talked earlier about taking sugar, right? So this is not new. I haven't invented this. I've just modified it. So pehle bhi humne baat ki thi wo orange or rosemary wali drink. Is pe nahi bataunga because that'll get copied straight away. But cotton candy. So if you imagine, because it's science now, aapko shot glass mein ya test tube mein coffee banayegi, espresso, and you have a cup, and then you have this apparatus that Bunsen burner type, jo physics or science mein hota hai, and metal stand ke upar cotton candy hai. Now when you pour the coffee into the wider cup and it's underneath the cotton candy, that starts to heat up and it drips. So you get sugar in your coffee, but from a different perspective. Or you take the cotton candy and eat it. So there's a Saudi mein khajur leke phir kava peete hai. So it's the same kind of concept. That gives you a completely different experience. But I want people to experience coffee from its true, origins. Everything should be glass. You can see everything. It must be transparent, open. You should be able to engage.
अगर फिर ये experience वाली दुकान तो आपकी फिर आपको खुद बैठना होगा. So it can be like a so I'm also talking from a Pakistani perspective.
Yeah,
now.
True.
So this is more of something that even if it was in New York, I would say आपको खुद बैठना होगा. Because it's just not something that you can pass on to a manager.
Yeah, I think so I've come to realize.
But I was talking about आपकी जो 400 दुकानें हैं, आपकी 100 दुकानें हैं, वो कैसी हैं? वो दुकानें.
Achha, that would be different, right? So this is the flagship store.
वो तो flagship store हो गया. उसमें रोस्टिंग,
so Islamabad
distribution हो गई.
Islamabad की हम बात कर रहे हैं. So again, very simple, white, wood, and then black undertones, and some teal as well because that's a color that we're using in the UK. Some Mercedes ke colors, F1 ke colors, right? Just think of that. And very slick, simple kind of places where you can come, safe spaces and hang out. So Islamabad mein humne jagah dekh rahe, F7, F6 would probably be at the size of this space. Just
can I say it should be like have you been to Manhattan Express?
No.
Okay, so you should. It's in Defense.
Mm-hmm.
They do good coffee. I mean, good as in like
not
McDonald's coffee. way better than espresso.
तो हम एक काम क्यों नहीं करते? You talked about doing the podcast Common Ground. Why don't we go and visit all the coffee shops? हम rating भी कर लेते हैं. Not from a critical perspective. We'll give them positive.
बस उनके CEOs के साथ, तो मैं वही तो कह रहा था आपसे कि उन्हीं के CEOs के साथ करेंगे. सारी जो कॉफी शॉप्स हैं कराची की, सबके साथ. The ones you like, the ones you don't like.
Yeah.
Everyone.
So the concept
invite them
of
over or have them make the coffee.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Right? And you're like, okay.
So the concept of the 400 locations is that there's a standardized format I think we should follow, but also there needs to be something that's very unique about the particular location, given the city or the location it's in.
तो आप
And you would only
असल में आप जो जा रहे हैं ना, आप जा रहे हैं यूनिट मॉडल पे. मैं कह रहा हूँ भाई चाय वाला मॉडल से मुझे आप समझाएं कि किस तरह इसको स्केल कर सकते हैं that actually is profitable. And
so
like
okay, so
either you're saying, okay, I'm going to acquire the coffee shop, I'm going to copy the coffee shop which is made by Manhattan Express or by Esquires. Like you've been to Esquires. या नहीं, दूसरे जो अभी नई खुली है मेलब्रू जो भी है. तो उनकी क्योंकि बिल्कुल प्लेन सी काउंटर वाली.
So I think we talked about this and I'm always conscious कि आपने बहुत सारे ideas दे दे तो लोग फिर वो होता है ना. But I'll say it now because like I said we're doing a Series A fundraise. So it's called the ATM.
Okay.
Vestibule model.
Okay. So kiosk model.
Yeah. So basically it's enough for
ATM
someone.
का size जितना होगा जिसमें बंदा अंदर खड़ा है कॉफी बनाएगा,
वो भी comfortable है, वो भी जरूरी है. एक मशीन है, उसमें सारी चीजें जो उसको चाहिए. You can come and collect your coffee, so you can order online via an app or other methods as well, and collect your coffee and still have a similar experience.
No seating.
So yes, so I developed a model in the UK that would work here in Pakistan. So you have maybe 3 or 4 seats. और ये मॉडल मैंने थोड़ा मॉडिफाई किया. एयरपोर्ट पे आपको नजर आता है कि जस्ट अपने क्विक एंड फास्ट
बनी हुई है.
Smaller than that, so you can go scale much faster. You get more locations because देखो मैं इतनी जगह चाहिए ना आपको. Literally ATM
कि वो काउंटर आ गया पूरा कियोस्क, आगे एक टेबल रखी है या 2 टेबल रखी.
So not even a table. I would utilize the space differently. So if you imagine
4 काउचेस रखे हैं बस.
आप एक हाई लेवल बार रख सकते हैं और स्टूल्स रख सकते हैं.
इधर बार चल रहा है.
Yeah.
And then इसके आगे कुर्सी रखी है.
Maybe 1 or 2 tables if you want. If you don't want it, then just the stools, because you can get 4 or 5 people in that way. So table takes up more space.
No, like sorry, वो बार का स्टूल रखे हैं, मैं टेबल बोल रहा हूँ सिर्फ.
हाँ, तो स्टूल्स आगे आपका काउंट वो वर्कटॉप के हाइट पे स्पेस है. So people can sit and have a quick coffee and a quick bite.
Don't you feel like Pakistan mein having coffee is more of a thing that you do for engagement rather than just going and chilling by yourself, because no one chills by themselves.
No, so here's where the shift needs to happen. So you're absolutely right. And I learned this the hard way. The लोग कहते हैं coffee के लिए जा रहे हैं, but coffee is used as a word.
बहाना है.
It's like चलो मिलते हैं.
coffee मिलना है, so you mention your coffee shop.
So I was naive. I thought coffee means go for coffee because that's what I do. चलो मैं अकेले भी जाके पी सकता हूँ. But coffee meant let's meet up or let's hook up, right? And there's got to be food behind it. Well, yeah, I'm not advocating that, but ये भी होता है. I mean, जो भी है, whether in this country or in Europe. And then there'd be a excuse to meet up around it, and your drink is just your excuse, or let's have a business meeting over a coffee or whatever it is, right? So what you do is you're using coffee as the enabler for the conversation. If you're meeting someone for the first time, even in a business setting, it's a tool to reduce the anxiety around the two individuals. So first time business meeting, we get that, but oh, do you like coffee? You're breaking the ice. So I don't think we're quite there in terms of the concept of meeting just for coffee.
We're not.
But over the past 3 years, the alchemy has been going. I've seen that little, and I use the word ecosystem again, the coffee ecosystem grow and grow and grow. And in my immediate circle, there's close to 150 people that would quite easily meet just for coffee. Because unki palate develop ho gayi hai, and they're saying, humne khana nahi khana, we just want to meet for good coffee. So, the population of your words, 250 million people. We don't need 250 million people to drink coffee. If we can tap into 0.25% of that, of connoisseurs, then that model works for them. But there also needs to be an alchemy awam, where it's like we discussed the other day, the latte, the milk-based coffee drinks, or the cold coffee drinks, that appeals to everyone, and then you're using that as an excuse to meet. So then maybe the concept around the seating is different. Maybe wo bahar hai, jaise dhabes pe hote hai, chai wala, and all that kind of stuff. So the premise is that coffee brings people together, whatever the reason. The product can be modified or manipulated depending on the outcome that you want. And jahan tak jagah ka hai, agar aapne 400 dukanein kholna, I would go with the vestibule model, whether seating inside or not, or seating outside, or takeaway. But that would be I think the easiest way. And then you learn from your audience as well, right?
Of course. So I want to sum this part up by sharing how hot pot has taken off in Karachi.
Okay.
Or all in Pakistan. Hot pot aapne Pakistan se bahar khaya?
Ji.
Have you ever had it in an outdoor seating?
No. In Pakistan?
No, outside.
No.
But have you ever had hot pot indoors in Pakistan?
No.
All the hot pot places are outdoor, which is so weird that I've had hot pot in 5 countries. Never ever even seen it outside. तो किस तरह कौन सी चीज कहाँ पे किस तरह टेक ऑफ करते हैं पता भी नहीं होता. So yes, trial and error is the way to go, and this is something that needs a lot of education. And coffee, since it is a premium product, it's not as cheap as chai. Coffee, chai का डब्बा फैमिली पैक का फैमिली मिक्सचर टपाल का 20 रुपए का मिल जाता है. 5 लोग उसमें चाय पी लेते हैं. Coffee is not the similar product. So how do you go about it? I'm actually curious and I'm excited to learn along the way. And I mean, we're here to help.
It's a journey, right?
But it's a journey. And
the first part was to
मुझे ये पता है पाकिस्तान में उग सकती है कॉफी बीन गंदी.
So I've had the soil tested. I'm giving away a lot of information, right? So I've had the soil tested, and yes, it can, but it will take 5 to 7 years to get to that level.
मैं तैयार पौधा नहीं मंगा सकते एक?
मेरे पास है.
यहाँ पाकिस्तान में है, और उसमें निकल रही है? नहीं, कितने साल में निकलेगी?
5 to 7 years in the current condition of the soil.
तैयार पौधा, मैं बड़ा पौधा.
नहीं, ऐसा नहीं. So I have a small plant.
नहीं, मैं बड़ा पौधा अगर मंगा लूँ तो फिर ट्राई कर सकते हैं.
कर सकते हैं.
क्योंकि everything grows in Pakistan. I mean, we have very good we have every temperature in Pakistan.
Well, I've seen, so what inspired me is I went to, oh gosh, I can't remember, somewhere in Punjab a long time ago, Mitchell's ke farm pe mein gaya tha. We were invited. Yeah. And I saw oranges growing there and cucumbers. And then I asked Mehdi bhai, हमने soil को cultivate किया. Not inspired me. And then when I was ready to do alchemy, so 2019 की बात है, had the soil tested, and I said, ये हो सकता है, but इसको थोड़ा cultivation की और ज़रूरत है. It needs to have some stuff put in and all that kind of stuff. So in theory, yes.
So you want to just grow coffee in Pakistan instead of doing alchemy?
So I'd love to be a coffee plantation co-owner. So yes, you've now
co-owner, okay.
आपने भी दरवाजा खोल दिया.
चलो हम एक करते हैं. ये वाला डिपार्टमेंट हम कर सकते हैं.
चले, let's do that. And then I think the flagship store I would like. So
I would like your flagship store to be in मीरपुर साकरो, जंगल के बीच में कॉफी के, उधर ही आप जाओ, उधर से ही करो. Yes.
And then you can sit outside and enjoy your coffee.
Have a coffee resort. ठीक है, देखिए मैं आपको tear down.
No, there's an idea. Anything is possible.
Too many ideas, and we are a book of ideas.
No, but when you're an entrepreneur, that's how you do it, right?
Yes,
and you think, okay, what's doable right now? What's practical? What's scalable? And what is required?
Yes.
And then you think, okay, even some of the craziest ideas have come that way, right?
But we need to tell people that coffee sells for 5,000 rupees a kilo when roasted. So if you just try to roast it, I mean, you grow rice, it sells for what, 30 rupees a kilo? अब आपको क्या उगाना चाहिए? आपके पास जवाब आ गया है. Thank you so much for watching. Is there something that I should add?
Don't be scared of coffee.
Yeah.
Try
and don't be scared of starting with the SDGs also.
Yeah, don't be scared. Be brave. So be courageous. हमने भी first step लिया हुआ है, आपने भी first step लिया, बहुत सारे लोगों ने first step लिया. Be courageous, and we have the courage inside us. We just have to find a way to release it. So yeah, I think that would be it. But yeah, awesome. Don't be afraid.
Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, pleasure.
Startups, entrepreneurship, starting your own new business. Join me every week as we dive into stories, topics, and advices from the top founders, innovators, the crazy ones, the misfits, the troublemakers. Every Saturday at 4 p.m. I'll see you there.